not the family house, give us a couple more years, but the White House. So from formal state dinners to dining in the first family's residence, tonight's special guest speaker, Chef John Moeller, served in the White House from September of 1992 until 2005, which makes him one of the longest tenured chefs at the White House. You notice how bipartisan he is, serving across 3 administrations, including Presidents George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and George W. Bush. Now, during his tenure, he helped create and prepare meals for the first family, certainly, for world leaders and for foodies like Tony Blair, Nelson Mandela, Julia Child, and Sophia Loren. He also orchestrated the food for holiday parties and trips to Camp David. I know you all will want his phone number, so I'm sure we'll be sharing that. Right, Chef John? Yep. Chef Moeller has accumulated many stories from an ever-changing White House, and he recently detailed this journey and his White House experience in a book, Dining at the White House, From the President's Table to Yours, and it actually also includes 100 recipes for those of you who want to take a hand at it. So Chef Moeller is here with us tonight to give you an exclusive insider look at the White House. Are you actually going to be making any predictions at all? Maybe on food likes and dislikes.
Can you confirm or deny anything?
Recant some of his most memorable moments, absolutely answer some of your questions, and he will also be sharing a tasting of one of his most delicious desserts, warm flourless chocolate torte with raspberry sauce. So please join me in welcoming Chef John Moeller.
Good evening. It's great to be here at this house. I worked for 13 years at the White House. That's pretty good public housing for the most part, you know, and they don't charge for it, you know. But what part of being at the White House? Let's try that. Part of being at the White House is taking care of all their daily meals. You know, the president, the first lady, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We take care of all those things. Their guests. By the time that they finish dinner and get up for the evening, that's pretty much our cue to be done for the night. There's not chefs sitting there 24/7 wondering if he wants a PB&J at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know. So pretty much about 9 o'clock or so at night, we're pretty much done and out of there. Yeah. Also with that is also all the official functions. You know, they could be breakfasts, lunches, dinners, and picnics on the South grounds. These are all encompassed in what we do down at the White House. And from time to time, we never know who comes into the White House. I mean, yes, we know that we have the President and First Lady there, and of course we know when the head of state is coming in. Last week we had the Prime Minister of Canada come in for a state dinner, and that was the first time that somebody from Canada came in since I was down there at the White House in the late 90s. So it was kind of interesting. Actually, I got about 8 interviews last week from Canadian media sources wanting to talk about the state dinner and my last interaction with the Prime Minister that was there back in the late 90s. But after one of the dinners I did one time, I happened to, actually it was a luncheon, I got a letter about a week later through the usher's office. So sometimes I like to start things off with like a little bit of a reading from my book here. And this one starts off as October 26, 1999, Hillary Rodham Clinton, the White House, Washington, D.C. Dear Mrs. Clinton, how very kind of you to host a luncheon for all of us the other day in your beautiful White House. I have been there several times, starting with the LBJ administration, where everything was beautifully handled. During subsequent visits, I was not as impressed. But when I returned for the Sara Lee Frontrunners Awards luncheon, I was delighted to find the White House sparkling, the service beautiful and attentive, and the food delicious. It was a very heartwarming experience. Thank you so much. With all good wishes, Julia Child. Well, I did not know she was coming for that luncheon. And at the time, we would give all the chefs that all work there, hey, you do this luncheon, I'll do this dinner, you do this reception. If you're in charge of any meal, you have to come up with the menu concept. The protocol is to give it to the usher's office. They type it in a format that goes over to the social secretary. Social secretary is the first person that gets a once over on it. And then afterwards, if she has any questions, she'll get back in touch with you. When she feels it's ready to be presented to the First Lady, she'll do so, and then she'll get back to you with any questions on the menu. And once she obviously gives the thumbs up, then we're good to go. So I had this menu for this luncheon with the First Lady, Mrs. Clinton there, and it just went through normal channels. Of course, I knew the First Lady was there. I didn't hear anything else about the rest of the guest list. And then 15 minutes before service, somebody comes back in the kitchen and says, Julia Child just walked in the door. And I'm going, why doesn't anybody tell me these things? You know? And of all the times, yes, we had Nelson Mandela there, we had Tony Blair, and all, Helmut Kohl. I just did the job. That one, I froze for a moment. I was like, gee, should I change something or do something different with the menu? I was like, no, I mean, the train's left the station, just go with it, you know? So we went through and did the luncheon. Everything executed very well. Actually, it just flipped over, but we have that's the menu card. It was interesting. Once the menu's been okayed, then it goes over to the calligraphy department, and then they will handwrite all the menus, and then they'll run them off, and each guest will have this menu card in front of them. And I was pretty vigilant during the time I was there. I saved just about all of them. I got almost 500 of these cards saved up here, and I drew out about 10 or so to put inside the book here to draw recipes out of for my book here. But nonetheless, that's the menu card for the event there. And then next is the social secretary saw the meal coming out and really liked it. So as they were going to the state dining room, it was going at this point they were going through the red room, and she said, "Here, put it on the table there." The White House photographer took a picture of it. And what was kind of neat is anytime, if you're in the picture or your food or anything associated with you is in a photograph, within a day or so, it's inside your mailbox. It's kind of neat. So I got a nice stack of photos from the times I was there from the White House photographer. And then after the luncheon was done, we had a picture with, all of a sudden that iconic figure shows up in her kitchen, and she thanked us for a job well done, and we got a picture with her in the kitchen at the White House there, you know. Kind of interesting note, though, where she's at, I'm on the right side of her, and on the left side was the head chef at the time. Have you heard about that White House chef that died last year in a tragic hiking accident over in Taos, New Mexico? That was him. I worked with him during the whole time that he was there, you know, so it was such a tragedy to have something like that happen. He had just turned 60, and just got caught in a bad situation up in the mountains there, you know. They called it an accidental drowning. But nonetheless, you know, everything went well, and then about a week later, I was up in the usher's office. The usher's office is like the command center of the White House, and the usher on duty said, "John, that was your luncheon you did when Julia Child was here last week." And I said, "Yes," and he goes, "You might want to see this." So he showed me that letter that she wrote to Mrs. Clinton, and I said, wow, that's pretty cool. And they showed me the letter of Mrs. Clinton responding to Miss Child, thanking her for her kind words. And I said, can I make a photocopy of that? So I said, I might need that someday, you know. So I did a photocopy and treasured it for a few years until I had an opportunity to write this book here, you know. I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I started my culinary career there. I was gone for about 23 years. I came back in 2010, started a business, State of Affairs Catering. I thought I'd go into the catering business for a bit. I met a local publisher there and got me started on this book, Dining at the White House here. It took 2.5 years to do it. And what I wanted to do was give a nice overview, starting with my culinary tour and how I got to the White House. You know, I started in Lancaster, went to Johnson Wales up in Providence, Rhode Island in mid-'80s. An opportunity to go over to Europe. I had a friend working in Paris, cooking, so I went and met up with him. After being there for a little bit, I ventured out, found something in Dijon, France, and 84, 85, and 86, I had a great opportunity to spend that much time over there. And 2+ years was in Burgundy. Actually, the first job I had there was actually doing the grape harvest there, and then I worked in some hotels and restaurants. After coming back to the States here, I had a job opportunity in the Virgin Islands, went down to St. Croix for a year, and when I came back up north again, landed in D.C., always liked D.C., and the international flair that it was giving. And after all my travels, I thought this would be a pretty cool place to hang out. Found a job the first day I was there in a French-style restaurant. I was a French-Belgian chef. Started to work with him within a week here. And then a couple of weeks after that, after we started working there, he said after service on a Friday night, why don't you come with me tonight? All the French chefs get together in Washington once in a while, and tonight's the night. We're going down to the Mayflower. He says, your French is good enough, you can hang with us. So I went down and met every French chef in Washington. Every single one of them was there. And I got to know a whole bunch of them, and this one gentleman I became friends with over the next year or two. We talked from time to time over drinks, talk about the food scene in Washington and etc. And then I heard he started working at the White House. I said, wow, that's pretty cool. Pierre's at the White House. And then about a year and a half later, I got a fateful phone call from him one day, and he said, you know, I'm up for the chef position. I'm looking for someone to take my position. Would you be interested? I said, let me think about this. Absolutely. What do I got to do about this? You know, tell me. What do I got to sign here? So when we sat down to talk about the position, he said that there's 5 chefs in the kitchen full-time, 2 pastry, 3 cooking. of course, I'm on the cooking side, and he said that they have to be American citizen to work full time, and so he was French born, but he's American citizen. He said the pastry chef is French born, but he's an American citizen too. He said I could bring another Frenchman in that's an American citizen, but I think it's too many French people. So what I'm looking for is an American that knows something about French cooking. So little did I know that little séjour in France is what set me apart from the other candidates and got me in. So in 1992, started working with George H.W. Bush, and I'll never forget the very first luncheon I had to work for them. And I didn't have any cooking, demo or any kind of tasting menu to do. I just got the job because Pierre wanted me to come in. So they were on the road a lot doing the campaign in '92. And so it took like 3 days to actually cook the first meal there, which is actually worse than doing it on the first day. The anticipation building up, like, how am I going to get this thing knocked off here, So they said, First Lady's having lunch for 3 people at 12:30. John, get the menu together. I got the food in, all the good stuff there, and then I'm working in the ground floor kitchen. Is our main kitchen. And it's not much bigger than this area here. It's not a large kitchen, but we do our main preparation there. Then we go up to the second floor. That's where the President and First Lady live on a day-to-day basis. And if you look at the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue, those first row of windows on the first floor, state dining room, the green room, the red room, and all that is there. On the second floor is their living quarters, and the second floor far right window facing Pennsylvania Avenue is the small kitchen that I'm working at when I'm serving them, and the next 2 windows is their dining room. So that corner of the house is where we hang out most of the time. And that was what was kind of cool about what we did. Between the chefs, the butlers, and the maids, we were the closest ones to them on a day-to-day basis. And what was also kind of extraordinary is that politics had nothing to do with what we did. So you would never, ever, ever bring up politics while you're up on that second floor and compromise your position to be up there. So we had a chance to get to know them in a completely different light than everyone else. So I'm up there for the first time, and the butler comes back. He's got a whole bunch of different plates. Hey, what do you want to use for lunch? You want to use the Wilson China, the Roosevelt, or the Johnson? And it kind of hit me like, my goodness, I'm working in a museum, And it really is. You have all these irreplaceable things you touch and do every day. So I said, the Roosevelt plate looks good. Let's go with that, And then after I'm getting things going, and the chef's next to me, Pierre, explaining to me, here's the process, and here's what to expect and how the service should go. And then the butler came back and said, First Lady wants to see out in the dining room. And I looked at him, I froze for a moment, I looked at Pierre, and Pierre looked at me and said, well, get out there, don't keep her waiting, So went out to the dining room, and at the head of the table is that iconic figure you see every day is now looking up to you saying, oh, good afternoon, so you're one of our new chefs here. I said, yes, I am. She goes, well, welcome, it's good to have you on board. And you have to forgive me, I've been on the road a lot lately, but I think I might have met somebody from your family. And I said, really? I mean, my family's not that politically connected. And I was like, where do you think you might have been? My dad is South Dakota, Minnesota, and my mother's like northern Pennsylvania and up in like the Binghamton area, up in that lower part of upstate New York. And it was up in the Northeast here, maybe Connecticut. I was at this woman's house for a reception, and this lady came up to me and said that her nephew just started working at the White House as a chef, and I was wondering if it might have been you. I said, how about New Jersey? And she goes, yeah, I think it might have been New Jersey. I said, it has to be my NRE. That's the only one I could think of. They're pretty big business folks up in the Hackensack area, and they were strong Republicans. And so I said, geez, it has to be them. Sure enough, it was. I called her up later on, my aunt. I said, by the chance, did you meet Mrs. Bush? And she goes, yeah, it was about a month and a half ago. And she actually remembered that. She was actually blown away that she remembered this, And that was just how they were, and that's how Mrs. Bush was. I mean, she didn't forget a thing, but they wanted to make it so personal. I mean, after talking about what the menu was going to be and just things in general at the White House and that story about my family, I turned around and walked back to the kitchen and said, wow, that didn't go any the way I thought it was going to go. They're real people, And that was the most extraordinary part of, like I said, of being there, is getting to know them on a personal basis, And those coming months there, I mean, I only had that last year of their administration, but it was very, very close. I mean, I was just so shocked at how down to earth they were and how we got along with everybody, He had a horseshoe pit in the back behind the Oval Office, and he liked inviting us over to play horseshoes with him, from time to time. So it was a lot of fun, What do you think the most extraordinary day of being at the White House? Inauguration day, especially the one coming up. That's gonna be real extraordinary. But normally. But normally, I mean, what it takes to get one president out and bring another president in is just beyond comprehension. Of course, about 9:30 and of course it was my first one when George H.W. was leaving. And about 9:30 in the morning, they sent a message out to all the resident staff. There's 80 of us on staff to take care of the house on a day-to-day basis. Plumbers, carpenters, the calligraphy department, usher's office, the maids, the butlers, all of us constitute about 80 folks or so. So we're all standing in the state dining room in a big circle, all in our uniforms and what have you, and these big mahogany doors are closed, leading into the cross hall. Suddenly they open up, and the President and First Lady walk in, and you can see the commotion going on in the cross hall. They're getting ready to leave for the very last time with their close-knit group of people. And they walk in, they close the door, now it's just us and them. And I'll never forget how President and Mrs. Bush, they looked at every one of us around the room there, walked into the middle of our circle, and his head dropped down, and it swung back and forth for a moment, and he goes, of all the goodbyes that we had to say, this is going to be the toughest one, because all of you people have taken care of us for the last 4 years, and we can't say thanks enough. Oh, there wasn't a dry eye in the whole place, I mean, we started trading back fun stories that happened over the years. We had when the President and First Lady go on trips, and they have their pets. They don't go on trips with them. They will keep them in the engineer's office in the basement because they're the only ones there 24/7 watching the mechanicals. So Mrs. Bush, Barbara Bush, comes back from a trip early and says, "I'm just going to go down and get Millie myself." So she jumps on the elevator, goes down to the basement. I mean, it's just a basement, and she knows how to get back to the engineer's office. She opens up the door, and on the wall there's a chalkboard, and somebody wrote on it, "Somebody wash the stinking dog." She looked at her, and she looked up and said, "Well, I guess Millie needs a bath, huh?" So nobody got in trouble. They just laughed it off, and then picked up the dog, took her upstairs, and that's how those things go, But it was extraordinary. But then afterwards, after they all left the state dining room and they all left the White House there, I never forget, I went up to all through the old family dining room, looked through these big windows in the north portico, and as they left, you see the moving trucks pulling up to take out the Bush's belongings, and there's moving trucks behind them bringing the Clinton stuff in. And then what goes on this next couple hours is just unbelievable. I mean, everybody's getting in stage place to change things over, and the Oval Office, they got to rip everything out, and the transition team's already chosen what the colors are going to be, and what rugs are going to be there, and the furniture, what desk, what's going to be on the desk. So at 5 o'clock or so, when the president comes back in, he's ready to go take care of business there, But nobody can do anything until the swearing in. God forbid if something would happen, the president is still in charge. If he needs to come back to the Oval Office and take charge of a situation, then they'll have to do that. So and once that swearing in is done, my goodness, they just rip through the whole place, and it's unbelievable how many workers turn over everything that's going on there. And that evening, we don't have a dinner or anything because of all the inaugural balls. They said, we'll just do a grazing buffet up in the solarium for any guests that might need a bite to eat or didn't eat lunch before they go out for the balls. So I'm up on this third floor manning this little buffet, and nobody's gone through it. It's like 6 o'clock right now. And then afterwards, suddenly I see this gentleman come around the corner. It's Bill Clinton, and he's all charged up, and he's seeing the house for the very first time. And he looks over to me, and I introduced myself to him, and I said, "Yeah, sir. Well, my name's John. We're the chefs here, and we have a little buffet up this little ramp here. If you're hungry for something." And he says, "They got any cheeseburgers up there?" I said, "No, sir, but I can get one for you real quick, But no, just kidding, no. But what was extraordinary is that here I said goodbye to and shook the hand of an